Yo, what is up, guys? It's Phantom today, and today we have an exciting rumor. It's not exactly news, but an exciting rumor. So, basically, what if I told you that Netherrealm, the studios behind Injustice and Mortal Kombat, are supposedly, rumors, working on a Marvel game? A Marvel fighting game, so don't think it's a random game. So, Neitherealm Studios, the developers behind Mortal Kombat and Injustice, is reportedly working on a new Marvel fighting game, which could be the first proper Marvel fighting game since 2017 Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Now again, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was kind of a flop, but the thing is the game had a really good gameplay, but bad everything else. Which would be first proper fighting game, Marvel 2 in 2021. Many are expecting Netherrealm to reveal and release Injustice 3, and this may still happen, but it sounds like Injustice 3 may continue to stay on ice in favor of making a Marvel fighting game. Which, again, if you guys don't know, Neitherealm Studios sort of has this, how do I put it, schedule. So the schedule works like this. Let's say Injustice 2 came out, I forgot when, and then it was like a 2-year cycle before we got Mortal Kombat 11. And that's how their games work. It's usually a 2 or 3 year cycle. And they either release a season pass, DLC, or an update with the game. What I don't think Mortal Kombat 11 has gotten an update as of late, besides Ultimate Mortal Kombat, that was for next-gen consoles. So we're wondering what the hell is going on. And this news just popped out of nowhere. Fortunately, the news report, which comes way of Daniel Richmond via Stealth Optional, is light on details, but Richmond claimed the game is already in production for next-gen consoles, which is to stay behind, sorry guys, PS5, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S. You'd assume a PC version is also in work, but it sounds like PS4 and Xbox One users may miss out. I don't feel like the game's gonna come out this year or next year, because they're talking about a part shortage with a lot of the next-gen console, meaning that a lot of games don't want to take the risk right now because the short part shortage, and it's harder to get next-gen consoles out in the open. So I highly doubt this is coming out next year or this year. What this means for the new Injustice game remains to be seen. It largely depends on how far along this game is in development. It's been in development for a while, then it could be very well be the studio's next game. However, if it's the early stages of development, then Injustice 3 will probably come first, and of course, while unlikely, it's possible both will be merged into Marvel's Justice fighting game. Unfortunately for now, all we have is reports and speculation. Until more information arrives, take everything here with a grain of salt. Again, this is a major rumor. It's a rumor. Big rumor, actually. But let's talk about the concerns, because the community do have concerns. They think with the development of a Marvel vs. DC fighting game or Netherrealm fighting game, this could spell the end for Marvel vs. Capcom. Which I have to say, I don't believe that. I feel like this is an alternative to Marvel vs. Capcom with Marvel characters in it. And I feel like Marvel vs. Capcom still has a major way of coming back. You have to remember, Marvel and Capcom recently announced the arcade cabinets and released those. So it shows that they still have a somewhat good relationship. And the next thing they have is Marvel with MCU. Marvel Games is its own entity as of now. Let me explain. When Marvel's Capcom Infinite was going on, Marvel Games was still connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fuck, I keep messing that up. Gonna take you around, but no, they were still connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but now they're not. They're their own entity. They can do whatever they want. This is why you'll notice in a lot of their mobile games, this is a horrible example, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the characters that, in the beginning they didn't have the rights to, are being more influenced. And comic book characters are being more influenced, like Sentry is seen on there, and a bunch of other Marvel characters, showing that they're following the comic lore. Even though the comic lore is kind of falling into the same Marvel Cinematic trap, but I don't want to talk about that. But, so, what could this mean? First of all, let me talk about the gripes I have with Netherrealm Studios. While these games are amazing, and they look amazing, and they feel amazing when you play them, they're not that interesting to play. And I mean that in the nicest sense. Mortal Kombat 9 was an amazing, crazy, hell of a game. Mortal Kombat 10 was an amazing, hell of a game. But then you get to Mortal Kombat 11, and I'm like, I'm I'll admit, I was not super fond of Mortal Kombat 11. I'm only really fond of the DLC. But the gameplay is... Man, the gameplay is kind of rough. And the gear system is fucking rough. Same goes for Injustice 2. Well, I enjoyed Injustice 2. Because I enjoyed the Flash, I enjoyed the superheroes, I enjoyed when they brought in Supergirl because that's my favorite DC hero. The gameplay doesn't have the same oomph that you'd expect from a Marvel game, which is why I'm very concerned. So, let's start off with the first theory, which is that this is just a possible Marvel superhero game. Will it still have the same oomph that Marvel vs. Capcom games have had? Which you can probably see, I'm using Marvel vs. Capcom games as footage. You see that there's like, it feels like a superhero game, like shit's going on around the screen, characters are being blasted, characters are have massive mega attacks. Are they gonna be allowed to do that? Because in like Injustice, Superman's not blasting you clear across the screen or punching you clear across the screen. He's not showing off his strength like at a maximum capacity. It's this sort of realistic, boring type of thing. And like, look at the animation in Ultimate vs. Capcom stuff, which again, you're probably looking at it on screen. I don't have to show you a lot. You see that the characters animate well, like really well. Which is another grab I have with Neitherealm games. These characters move stiffly. They don't feel like they're moving around, like they're doing extraordinary feats. So I hope that we get that with Marvel vs. Capcom. I hope we get better animation for all Neitherealm games. As a huge Mortal Kombat fan, like I just want to see Scorpion like jumping clear across the fucking like Mortal Kombat 9. But I don't know if we're gonna get that with this one. But if it's a Marvel versus just a Marvel game, yeah, I can see it leading into a sequel that is Marvel vs. DC. Which brings it to our other point, a Marvel vs. DC fighting game. This cannot be connected to the MCU. This had to be a large-scale comic book game. It can't be connected to DCEU or the Zack Snyderverse or Marvel Cinematic Universe at all. It had to be straight up like the 90s Marvel vs. DC crossover in the comics. Now, if you guys don't know, in the 90s, they did make a collection of comic books where it was Marvel and DC, and they went at each other. And that eventually get with the Amalgam universe. Which I actually want to see an Amalgam game, but I'm asking for too much. Too much. It's not Christmas yet. This is where we would need to see, like, I don't know. We would need to see like Superman fighting the Hulk, or Superman versus Sentry, Batman versus Iron Man, and then Batman versus Moon Knight. Spider-Man versus Super Warrior, the one Spider character. There's a lot of character matchups we would never have seen. Of course, we have the popular Captain America versus Batman, Iron Man versus Cyborg, Superman versus the Hulk, Wonder Woman versus Storm. Like, we need all of those in there. And I feel like that would be a better storyline, a better way to do things. But again, then it comes to massive concern. The gameplay. I am a Marvel games, Marvel vs. Capcom, like Marvel fighting games, it's always been the gameplay that makes these games stand out. Again, even Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, as bad as it was, that gameplay was on point. It was an amazing fighting game. Like that, it was a great fighting game. And I'm just wondering, will they be able to do that? And I'm hoping that. Isn't a death sentence for Capcom produced Marvel games? I feel like it's not. I feel like it might reinvigorate the idea of the Marvel property being, playable with video games and not just being restricted to the movies. Because it just makes sense. Also, I just really want to see Sentry in a video game that's like a fighting game. And I want to see him and Superman punch each other in the face. But the last alternative is just generally, if they did do an Injustice 3. Honestly, I don't know when Injustice 3 is coming out. I don't even know what they're going to do with Injustice 3. Shoot, they might go on a limb and just do Injustice versus the Masters of the Universe. Because if you don't know what that is, because you're a little bit young on the younger side, that is He-Man versus Injustice, which is an actual comic, which I'll probably show the image right here. I don't think that'll ever happen, but it'll be a cool concept for a game. But there's so much that goes into this. Because again, I don't want it to just look great. I want it to feel great. Like, you know what I mean? I want it to be a game that's button mashy and cool, and you're playing as your favorite superhero, beating up your other favorite superhero. That's what it should be. But I hope Netherrealm know what they're doing. I hope they know how they're developing everything. I have faith in it, but of course I have my gripes, because Netherrealm Studios make some pretty awful decisions in some games. I also want this game not to be a game where I play it once and get bored, like Injustice 2, and Mortal Kombat 11, the base game. Shoot, even Ultimate, I'm not as interested in the game anymore because there's not as well of gameplay that I used to have. But that's just my concern. What do you guys want from this? Because personally, I would just want a Marvel superhero games. And before someone said Arc System Works should probably develop it, as much as I want that, Arc System Works is developing 3 anime titles. And I don't think they'd have time for a Marvel game, if you want me to be 100% fair. And the closest thing we'll get to an Arc System Works developed Marvel game is Dragon Ball FighterZ. I don't classify BlazBlue Cross Tag as it, because, dear God, that game goes by in fucking a mile a minute. So I feel like we're probably going to get either Netherrealm or Capcom's going to probably come out with something, because E3 is virtual this year, so they can make as many announcements as they can. I'm very curious to see what they're doing. And again, this is all a rumor. Take this shit with a grain of salt, with get a bathtub of salt and just dump it all in there, because we don't know if this is true or not. Anyhow, if you guys liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let your heart be thy guiding key. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.